I've always been fascinated by the unexplained, and as a wildlife photographer, I've had my fair share of strange encounters in the wild. But when I received an anonymous tip about bizarre occurrences near an abandoned logging camp deep in the forest, I couldn't resist the opportunity to investigate. The informant claimed that people who ventured near the camp had reported seeing a large, muscular creature with a canine-like face and hearing guttural growls and howls coming from the surrounding woods. The description was eerily similar to that of the legendary Dogman, a creature I'd heard of but never actually believed to be real. Despite the potential danger, I felt a mix of excitement and fear as I prepared for my journey. Equipped with my trusty camera, a backpack filled with essentials, and a healthy dose of skepticism, I set off into the forest in search of the abandoned logging camp. As I ventured deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that settled in the pit of my stomach. It was as if the forest itself was warning me to turn back, but my curiosity was too strong to ignore. The trees seemed to close in around me, their branches twisting and reaching like gnarled, skeletal fingers. The further I traveled, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was making a terrible mistake. But it was too late to turn back now, and as I approached the abandoned logging camp, my heart raced with anticipation. The sun was sinking lower in the sky as I finally reached the abandoned logging camp. It was eerily quiet, with only the sound of the wind rustling the leaves and the occasional creak of the decrepit wooden buildings. I began to explore the area, my camera at the ready, searching for any signs of the creature that had been reported. As I walked, I came across strange tracks in the soft ground, unlike anything I had seen before. They were large, almost like a wolf's paw print, but much bigger and with elongated claws. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized that perhaps the stories were true. Continuing my exploration, I stumbled upon a grisly sight. Several animal carcasses, torn apart as if by a massive predator. Blood stained the ground and the smell of rotting meat filled the air. My heart pounded in my chest and I knew I was getting closer to the truth. It was then that I heard it, a guttural growl echoing through the trees, chilling me to the bone. The sun had nearly disappeared below the horizon, and the shadows lengthened, casting an eerie, haunting glow over the camp. As darkness enveloped the forest, I decided to set up a makeshift camp for the night inside one of the abandoned buildings. The howls and growls seemed to grow louder and closer, and my uneasiness grew with each passing minute. My hands trembled as I tried to set up my camera equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the mysterious creature. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, as if a pair of predatory eyes were fixed on me from the shadows. Suddenly, a large figure appeared at the edge of the clearing just beyond the beam of my flashlight. My breath caught in my throat as I saw it. A massive, muscular body with broad shoulders and a hulking chest, covered in dark, matted fur. Its legs were bent like a daub's, and its snout was long and broad, filled with sharp, gleaming teeth. This was the legendary Dogman, and it was staring right at me. As fear coursed through my veins, I knew that I couldn't stay in this place any longer. I had to escape. Without a second thought, I grabbed my camera and started running through the forest, my heart pounding in my chest. The Dogman let out a terrifying howl and began to chase me, its powerful legs propelling it through the underbrush with alarming speed. Branches whipped at my face and my lungs burned, but I couldn't afford to slow down. I could hear the creature's heavy breathing behind me, getting closer and closer with every step. In my panic, I stumbled upon a derelict building and darted inside, praying that it would offer some refuge. I hid behind a pile of rotting wood, struggling to catch my breath and stifle the sobs that threatened to escape. I could hear the Dogman outside, sniffing the air and searching for me. Its guttural growls echoed through the building, and I knew that it wouldn't be long before it found me. As the Dogman closed in on my hiding spot, I knew I had to do something to buy myself some time. Desperation and fear coursed through me as I fumbled with my camera, hoping to use the flash as a distraction. I could hear the creature's heavy footsteps approaching, and I knew I only had one shot at this. With trembling hands, I aimed my camera at the dogman and pressed the shutter button, causing the flash to erupt in a blinding burst of light. The creature let out a pained growl and recoiled, momentarily stunned by the sudden brightness. I seized this opportunity, sprinting out of the building and back towards the entrance of the forest. My legs pumped furiously as I raced through the dark forest, fueled by adrenaline and the will to survive. The dogman, disoriented by the camera flash, quickly recovered and resumed its pursuit. The guttural growls and snapping of branches behind me were a constant reminder that I was still being hunted and that the creature was determined not to let me go. Despite my exhaustion, I knew I couldn't afford to slow down. Every second counted, and my life depended on it. The path through the forest was treacherous, with gnarled roots and uneven ground threatening to trip me at every turn. I could feel the thorns and branches tearing at my clothes and skin, but the pain was nothing compared to the terror that drove me onward. The sound of the dogman's heavy breathing and powerful strides seemed to be getting closer, and I knew that I couldn't keep this pace up for much longer. As I continued to sprint through the darkness, my mind raced, searching for any possible way to escape this nightmare. The forest seemed to stretch on forever, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of despair creeping in. My lungs burned and my legs ached, but I knew that I had to keep moving. I had come this far, and I refused to give up without a fight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I could see the faintest glimmer of light filtering through the trees ahead. The edge of the forest was in sight, and with it, the hope of safety. My heart soared at the sight, and I pushed myself to run even faster, despite the agony that racked my body. But the dogman was relentless, and it was not about to give up its prey so easily. Its powerful legs propelled it even closer, and I could feel its hot, fetid breath on the back of my neck as it lunged for me. With one final burst of speed, I burst through the tree line, leaving the oppressive darkness of the forest behind. And just like that, the dogman stopped its pursuit. It hesitated at the edge of the woods, snarling and baring its teeth, but it didn't dare to follow me any further. The creature let out one last, chilling howl before disappearing back into the shadows, leaving me shaken, battered, and forever changed by my encounter with the legendary dogman. This harrowing experience would remain etched in my memory, a reminder of the terrifying creatures that lurk in the depths of the wild and the thin line between life and death. My respect and awe for the unknown had only grown, and I knew that my days of searching for answers had only just begun. As an urban explorer, I had visited many abandoned locations, but none had intrigued me as much as the old subway station beneath the city. I had heard countless stories about the place, tales of ghostly apparitions and strange occurrences. Despite the unnerving rumors, I couldn't resist the allure of uncovering the station's secrets for myself. Armed with a flashlight and a camera, I ventured into the dark, decaying subway station late one night. The air was damp and musty, and the eerie silence was broken only by the echoing sound of my footsteps. As I descended deeper into the station, I marveled at the graffiti-covered walls and the rusted train cars, remnants of a time long past. The further I ventured, the more unsettling the atmosphere became. I began to hear strange noises echoing through the tunnels. The distant, eerie clicking sounds and faint, rapid movement seemed to come from every direction. I tried to dismiss the noises as my imagination running wild, but I couldn't shake the growing feeling of unease. It was then that I encountered the creature. As I rounded a corner, my flashlight illuminated a pale, gaunt figure that moved quickly on all fours. Its large black eyes seemed to bore into my soul, and its open, gaping mouth revealed a darkness that sent chills down my spine. The creature let out a horrifying clicking sound, and I knew in that moment that I had to escape. I sprinted through the dark tunnels, my heart pounding in my chest. The clicking sounds grew louder and more frenzied as the creature pursued me relentlessly. I navigated the labyrinthine passages, desperately trying to stay one step ahead of the horrifying creature that hunted me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I frantically searched for an exit, all the while evading the creature's relentless pursuit. I could hear it getting closer and closer, its rapid movement echoing through the tunnels. My flashlight flickered, threatening to extinguish and leave me in complete darkness. Cornered in a dead-end tunnel, I knew I had to confront the creature. My heart raced as I searched for anything that could help me escape this nightmare. I noticed a rusted metal pipe on the ground and grasped it tightly, knowing it might be my only chance for survival. As the creature lunged towards me, I swung the pipe with all my strength, connecting with its gaunt body. The creature let out a pained screech and stumbled back, momentarily disoriented. Seizing the opportunity, I sprinted past the creature, making a break for the exit. My legs burned and my lungs ached, but I didn't dare slow down. I could still hear the creature's clicking sounds, now more distant but no less terrifying. I raced through the tunnels, my flashlight beam dancing wildly across the walls as I tried to retrace my steps. Finally, I spotted the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the entrance. Relief washed over me as I burst out of the subway station, leaving the darkness and the creature behind. I didn't stop running until I was far from that dreadful place, my heart pounding as the adrenaline coursed through my veins. The encounter with the creature had left me traumatized, and I vowed never to venture into such a dangerous place again. As I sat in the safety of my apartment, reflecting on my harrowing experience, I realized that some mysteries are best left undiscovered. The abandoned subway station would forever remain a chilling reminder of the unknown horrors that lurk in the shadows. I found myself stranded in the unforgiving wilderness of northern Canada, my car rendered useless by the relentless snowstorm. The situation seemed dire as the snow piled up around me, making it impossible to continue driving. I knew I had to find shelter soon or risk succumbing to the extreme cold and become a frozen victim of the harsh Canadian winter. I left my car behind, trudging through the knee-deep snow. The wind cut through my clothing like a knife, and the heavy snowfall made it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet in front of me. My body shivered violently, and I questioned if I would even make it out of this alive. Stumbling through the white landscape, I eventually discovered an abandoned cabin nestled between the trees. It seemed like a miracle, and I hurried inside, relieved to escape the biting wind. The wooden door creaked loudly as I opened it, and I entered the small, dark space, my heart pounding with gratitude for the temporary refuge. The cabin was small and dark, but it provided me with the refuge I desperately needed. I quickly closed the door behind me, shutting out the howling wind and the relentless snowfall. As night fell, the storm outside grew even more ferocious, the wind howling like a pack of wolves, and the snow creating an impenetrable wall of white. I huddled in a corner, my arms wrapped tightly around myself, trying to preserve what little warmth I had. The cabin offered minimal protection, but it was better than being exposed to the elements outside. My thoughts raced, wondering how I would survive the night and find help. That's when I heard it. Strange noises outside the cabin, barely audible above the raging storm. It sounded like something was moving, scratching at the walls. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, and a creeping sense of dread washed over me. Was I truly alone out here? Or was there something else with me in this frozen wilderness? Ignoring the fear that screamed at me to stay put, I decided to investigate the sounds. I took a deep breath and mustered the courage to step back out into the storm, my vision obscured by the swirling snow. As I circled the cabin, I spotted something that made my blood run cold. Mysterious tracks in the snow, unlike any I had ever seen before. In that moment, I knew I had to find out what had left those tracks. Driven by a mix of curiosity and fear, I followed the trail deeper into the dark, snow-covered forest. The wind howled around me and my body ached from the cold, but I continued on, my determination unwavering. I felt as though I was being drawn to something, unable to resist the pull of the unknown. As I ventured deeper into the woods, the tracks became more pronounced. They were unlike any animal tracks I had ever seen, and the sheer size of them filled me with both awe and terror. The storm raged on, but I couldn't tear myself away from the mysterious trail. The further I followed the tracks, the more uneasy I became. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. a chilling sensation that sent shivers down my spine. The howling wind seemed to carry whispers, echoing through the trees and playing tricks on my mind. It was then that I saw it, a dark silhouette in the distance. My heart skipped a beat as I tried to make sense of the figure. As I cautiously approached, I realized that this was the creature responsible for the tracks. The creature. My body trembled with fear as I took in the sight of the horrifying creature. It stood tall, its body a twisted combination of rotting flesh and deer-like features. Its antlers loomed above its skull-like face, and its glowing eyes seemed to pierce my very soul. I knew I should have run, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. I was frozen in place, my heart pounding in my ears. The creature stared at me for what felt like an eternity, its gaze filled with an unspeakable hunger. Suddenly, the creature let out an ear-piercing shriek that jolted me back to my senses. I turned and ran, my legs finally responding to my primal urge to escape. I could hear the creature's footsteps behind me, the sound of crunching snow and snapping branches echoing through the forest. My lungs burned from the cold air and my legs ached from exertion, but I couldn't stop. I knew that if I slowed down for even a moment, the creature would have me in its grasp. As I sprinted through the trees, I caught a glimpse of the cabin through the swirling snow. I mustered every ounce of strength I had left and raced towards it, desperately hoping to reach safety before the creature could catch up to me. I burst through the cabin door, slamming it shut behind me and fumbling to lock it. My entire body shook with adrenaline as I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath. The creature's haunting shriek echoed through the night, making it clear that it was still out there, stalking me. I knew that I needed to do something to protect myself. I quickly scanned the cabin, searching for anything that could be used as a weapon or a barricade. I grabbed a heavy wooden chair and wedged it under the door handle, hoping it would be enough to keep the creature at bay. As I moved through the cabin, I stumbled upon a rusted hunting knife. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. I clutched it tightly in my hand, my knuckles turning white as I prepared myself for the inevitable confrontation. The creature's haunting cries continued to pierce the night, growing closer and closer to the cabin. I could hear its massive body moving outside, circling the cabin as it searched for a way in. The walls creaked under the weight of the creature's relentless assault, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it broke through. As dawn approached, the storm outside finally began to subside. The once deafening howl of the wind slowly faded to a whisper, and the snowfall lessened. The creature's cries grew more desperate, its hunger driving it to near madness. I held my breath as the creature slammed against the cabin door one final time, the sound of splintering wood echoing through the small space. But the door held, and the creature let out a frustrated howl as it retreated back into the forest. Exhausted but alive, I knew that I needed to leave the cabin and find my way back to civilization. The storm had passed, but the haunting memory of my encounter with the creature would remain with me forever. With a heavy heart, I stepped out into the cold morning air, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I left the cabin, I took one last look at the shattered remains of the wooden chair that had saved my life. I knew that I had been given a second chance, and I was determined not to waste it. I set off into the forest, following the path I had taken earlier to retrace my steps back to my car. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting a warm, golden glow on the snow-covered ground. The forest seemed almost peaceful now, a stark contrast to the terror I had experienced the night before. As I walked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the beauty of nature, despite the horrors it could also hold. The journey back to my car was a long and arduous one, my body still weak from the previous night's ordeal. Every step felt like a challenge, but I refused to give up. I knew that I had to keep moving, both to escape the lingering threat of the creature and to find help. As I finally reached my car, relief washed over me. The sight of the snow-covered vehicle felt like a beacon of hope, a symbol of my return to the world I had left behind. I brushed off the snow and climbed inside, grateful for the temporary shelter it provided. With my last remaining energy, I managed to dig out my car from the snow and start the engine. The heat slowly began to seep through the vents, and I felt my frozen limbs begin to thaw. As I pulled away from the treacherous forest, I knew that my life would never be the same. I would never forget my encounter with the creature or the chilling fear it had instilled in me. The experience had changed me, forcing me to confront the darkest parts of the world and of myself. I had survived, but the haunting memory of the creature would remain with me, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows. And though I would eventually return to the life I had known before, the mark left by the creature would never fade. The creature had become a part of me, a symbol of the unknown, the terrifying, and the mysterious. And as I drove away from the forest that had nearly claimed my life, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the world had yet to reveal.